Welcome to the Tobago House of Assemblies Division of Education, Innovation and Energy e-learning program. I am Ms. Khadesha and today I'll be doing fractions at the Standard 5 level. Our objectives for today are, at the end of the lesson, pupils will be able to define the term fraction, solve multi-step problems involving fractions, compute worded problems involving fractions using bar modeling. Now don't be afraid of the word bar modeling. The words bar modeling. Bar modeling simply means to represent it in the form of a bar, right? So we're looking at 1/8. And remember, a fraction is a piece of a whole. It's not the entire thing. So in this case, we have 1, which is our numerator, which tells us how many equal parts we have. And we have our denominator, which is 8, tells us the number of parts our whole is equally divided into. So in this case, our whole is equally divided into 8 equal parts. Now we're going to go into representing it as a bar model. So here we have 3/8. Remember, our 3 is our numerator, the number on top, and it tells us we have 3 equal pieces. 8 is our denominator, which tells us our whole is made up of 8 equal pieces. So we're stressing on the equal. So now we're going to go representing it in a bar form. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal pieces. And then we have shaded 3 of those to represent our numerator, which is 3. And this is how we represent it in a bar form or using bar modeling. So we're going to the exciting part of trying a question. If 3/8 of a number is 36, what is the number? If 3/8 of a number is 36, what is the number? So we would have seen that I would have highlighted some information. I would have highlighted 3/8 and 36. This is our first step in identifying the important information. Continuing with our step 1, we're analyzing the fraction. So we have in 3/8, remember, 3/8 is our numerator, which tells us we have 3 pieces. And from the question, we know 3 pieces is equal to 36. And our denominator tells us that our whole or entire number made up of 8 equal parts. And so we could represent this information as 3/8 equals to 36. Our step 2 now is to draw the bar to model the problem. So we have 3/8 equals 36. And remember, I said that all the bars are divided equally. So no one gets more than the other. So here we see 3/8 represented in the bar form as 36. So 3 of the green blocks equals 36. Our next step is to determine the value of one block. So before we could find the entire number, we must first find for 1. And we know that 3 of the blocks are equal to 36. And so we must find for 1. But how are we going to find for 1? Do we multiply, divide, add, or subtract? Remember, we're sharing it equally, and to share means to divide. So we must then divide 36 by 3, which would give us 12. So each of our blocks equals 12. So we're on step 4, which is to find the entire number. So remember, we would have found one block from before, which is 12. So since one of the blocks is 12, then we could find for the entire number. This means that each block is 12. So we have 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, and 12. We have 12 8 times. So you could either add 12 8 times or multiply 12 times 8, which would give you 96. So our entire number is 96. So now we're going to take it up a notch. A little extra pieces added on onto this question. So it reads, 4/5 of Jake's money is $60. How much is a third of his money? 4/5 of Jake's money is $60. How much is a third of his money? So again, we're going to identify the important information. So here we have 4/5 is $60. And then we need to remember to find a third of his money. So we're analyzing the fraction again. Remember, our numerator tells us how many pieces we have, and this is equal to $60. And our denominator tells us how many pieces we're going to break up the bar into, which is 5. And remember, the pieces are equal. And from the question, we know 4/5 is 60. Step 2 is to demonstrate or drawing the bar to model the problem. So we have 4/5, and remember again, the pieces are equal. So our denominator, which is 5, tells us that we're splitting the bar into 5 equal pieces, and we have 4 pieces shaded, which is equal to 60. Our third step is to calculate the amount of money. So since we know that 4 of our blocks are equal to 60, we could find for 1. Remember, we must always find for 1 first. So 1 block is, and just like before we divided, we need to divide again. So 60 divided by 4, and we would get 15. So this tells us 1 block is 15. So now we must find the entire bar, or the entire amount of his money, the total amount of his money. So to find that, we have 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 and 15, or we could multiply 15 5 times to get $75. Now, is that the end of the question? No, remember, we have to find a third of his money. So our next step will be to calculate a third of his money. Since we found out that his total money is 75, which is represented here in the bar, we can now find a third of his money. Using the same bar, we're going to divide it into thirds. I know you're probably wondering how we're going to divide it into thirds. So pay attention. We still have the same bar, but we divided it into thirds horizontally. So all the blue here is a third, all the green is another third, and all the orange is another third. Since we divided it into thirds, we now have 15 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So our 15 blocks is still equal to $75. But remember, as before, we must always find for 1. So to find for 1, we divided 75 by 15 to get 5, which means one of these blocks is 5. And remember, the entire blue line is a third, or the entire green is a third, and the entire orange is a third. So to find a third of his money, we take 1 block, which is 5, and multiply it by 5 to represent the third to get $25. So here we found out that a third of his money is $25. This brings us to the end of our lesson. We would have gone through defining the term fraction, which I hope you remember is a piece of a whole. We would have solved multi-step problems involving fractions, and we would have computed word problems involving fractions using bar modeling. And just a reminder, remember, bar modeling is simply representing the information in the question in a bar form.